So I've been digging through the Viveka Chudamani again, as you know, lately, and practicing some of the discernment ideals in there. And I thought I would just kind of try and share what I've learned and what's changed in my practice a little bit over the last couple of years as I've tried to make that a focus. This discernment, it's between the real and the unreal. And Sri Ramakrishna says that which is changing is unreal, and that which is unchanging alone is real, which is quite a great bit of a clue. And then in the Viveka Chudamani, it encourages us to have a strong dispassion, even an aversion toward things that perish, which is the same as saying the things that change. And what that has really allowed for me in the last year or so, maybe more, maybe it's a summary of my whole life, I don't know. It's hard to know what causes what. But in a sense, this beautiful space inside, this unchanging space at your very center, before your mind, before your personality, just where you're simply sitting in your awareness without any analysis or thought around it, that there's a great silence, a great peace, a great bliss that exists in that place, but it's quite difficult to stay there because of identity and because of attachment. And lately, as the mind has begun to quiet down quite a bit from those things and has recognized a silent space for its abode or for a place for it to sit in when it's not being pulled out, it has increased a sensitivity and an understanding about the nature of attachment. Each thing that happens to us triggers something inside. If we have any memories of pleasure or enjoyment that have come from that activity, and each one of those attachments or memories of enjoyment based on certain things, external things, contains a story of a memory, or a story of how it's affected you or what you've gotten from it. And in normal life, we spend most of our time in the tail end of those stories, meaning we don't recognize their arising within us. We don't recognize their association with the fundamental things. And so we live out on the edge of those branches. And just like any squirrel will tell you, living out on the edge of the branches can be quite perilous because of the danger of falling and the flexibility of those stories and the intertwining of those branches and the tangle and whatnot is all there. If you meditate on that analysis, it's quite real in living in that space. So if you can find that space in you where there is no change, and you can discipline yourself over time to maintain that space, it's a great place to go, because it will teach you a great deal about our predicament in our attachment to this body-mind, and how we constantly get caught up in the stresses and anxieties that are associated with that delusion. And being in that space, then, if you become very diligent about watching the mind, being aware of your awareness, which is what gets you into that space, but then in that awareness, to place it firmly on the mind and begin to see the stories arise and the feelings around those stories. And what I'm very excited to reveal, and actually what was my motive for wanting to share this kind of thinking, was the notion that those states, while they seem to be enjoyable when you live out at the end of that branch, when you live out at the end of those arising attachments, that they're not natural to you. Many of us think that it's natural to live in that space of want, of desire. And many of us think that it's pleasurable living out on the ends of those branches, because really, in relative knowledge, it seems that way. You're swinging up and down, so there's always a wave of joy coming at some point, but also the waves of despair too. And when you get closer to that center point within, there's just this very subtle but very beautiful sensation of being, of bliss, of joy. Not quite a joy as in excitement, but a joy as in your natural state. And when you see these sense objects pull in their stories and catch your attention because of your attachments, there's a bit of an anxiety at that moment, a very subtle anxiety when you're pulled out of your true self, out of your natural state of that quiet awareness. And noticing that there's a disturbance like that was a great insight for me, because it is the first warning about being pulled out of your nature. And if you stay watchful, that first warning is enough for you to gather your awareness again and to pull yourself back into center. And the quality of my life has taken a wonderful turn upward since realizing that and since seeing it. Now, I'm still very much practicing, this discernment. I'm not at all established in this space. But to have found its existence and to have managed to sit there and to feel and understand the unnatural nature of living in a body, living in the mind, and being attracted by the senses and the imagination of what they bring to you, since we know that nothing can be added or taken from the self, according to the Gita, we must know that these adventures into our attachments, into our body and mind, will also take nothing from us and give nothing to us, but will force us to live in an imagined state of dissatisfaction. So in all of that, pay attention to your mind, not what its desires are, but from where they're arising and why. And develop a dispassion through analysis, through understanding the nature of these desires, and understanding that in this world of change, nothing can remain with you for long. Nothing is worthwhile but that which you are, that part of you that is not part of time, that's not part of past, present, or future, that part which is blissful in the now, ever present, ever free, ever pure, needing nothing.